It all begins tonight for a brand new season and a clean slate journey to a series champion. Good evening, sim racing fans, and welcome to the season opener of the Four Corners Racing League for the virtual World Center of Racing and the Daytona International Speedway, as we bring you live coverage right here on STN Racing. We're happy to have you join us as we begin a brand new season where, alongside Jared Mackey up at the commentary box, my name is Kenneth Bueno with Zach Johnson producing and pushing the buttons for us back in the production trailer. Jarrett, it is good to be back and at least starting a brand new season where pretty much it is a clean slate. You've got all the marbles ready to be played with, and we can go to a series champion as they're rolling on the track right now.
Yeah, most definitely. You know, here at Daytona, the marbles will be played with in a very exciting way. We'll see a lot of 2-3 wide action, you know, on those high banks and on the backstretch. And, you know, there's always that big one to look out for. So I feel like that'll be a key to the race, is avoiding that one and staying and keeping your car clean as much as you can.
Definitely going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, not able to get to the full starting grid, but it'll be Grit Marketing's Nick Olson and James Lowe, the first two in the Chevy Camaros that'll bring us to the green flag. Pace car will make its left. We are up and away from the World Center of Racing, and a season opener, we are green.
Nick Olson getting a good jump there, and the high side really just didn't get going on that start. We'll see if that actually impacts how many people decide to dip down onto the bottom here as they head into turn number one.
And easy to turn number one already, the single file group. You saw James Lowe had to duck into third place as the 20 of JR Houston had found his way by to the inside. The DoorDash Toyota Camry making its way. And one thing we're going to be seeing here, Jared, especially as I think it's going to be working more closely to the rear of the race as opposed to right here on the opening stage, lap number one. But obviously looking at a lot of the organization that we're seeing, a lot more separation throughout this opening set as a four-car breakaway has pretty much broken out as Nick Olson will continue to lead them. But the organization between lines will be very key when we step in as Nick Olson leads lap number one.
Yeah, you know, I think these drivers realize how long of a race this truly is. 90 laps at Daytona, you know, 2.5-mile track. You know, they have time to just kind of settle in, get some laps, and make sure this one doesn't take too long. But know that at the end, that's when they make their moves.
And so right now, it is all just staying conservative as Olson continues to lead them forward. Still a little bit of a breakaway there to fifth place Tracy Parsons, or Tracy Passons rather, who's trying to make a move down. And now we'll get the push from the 17 of Aaron Adcock. Finally, they're getting their sort of a reign around the racetrack and at least trying to grab into the draft. And what you want to do, you do not want to fall out too quickly, or else you might fall back within a bunch of seconds and you're able to really not able to do anything in terms of making moves or getting with the drivers on the racetrack. But right now, Jared, I think for the most part, it's all about making those experimental moves, finding who you want to work with as sort of an outside lane as we go back to turn one.
Up there, you know, with about 2 cars behind them, then, you know, about car length and a half back to another 3 cars set. So I really think they're trying to establish what they could do on the high side if they had to make a move. And it's always good to get that experience in early on so you can see when you need it down in the home stretch.
And right now, a big push. The 95 of Gavin Hibbs down the back straightaway. He'll work his way side by side for the 4th spot as he's moving with the 49 of Casey Heschel, who's making that move in that Craftsman Toyota Camry, and the 53 of Robert Roeder. They're also trying to make something happen. Here comes Houston to the high side, door to door for the race lead at lap number 4.
You know, everyone says the safest place to be at these races is in the front, so I was not as all surprised to see Houston there jump out to try to get that momentum from the high side and try to pass Nick Olson, who he's been behind since the start of this race.
And right now, 2 by 2, so easy organization already for the driver of that number 20 machine. Remember, JR Houston rocking those DoorDash colors in the number 20 rather than the 23, but still in the same font, in the same nature rather, of 2311 Racing, one of the drivers who worked for 2311 Racing, and Bubba Wallace. So in the NASCAR Cup Series, very exciting venture for him, and obviously trying to work still for the race seed, that push to the high side, giving that shove. And obviously another thing about what we're seeing here, Jared, is the racing that we're seeing with these high downforce cup packages where you're able to get the big draft of the driver right in front of you. You're able to get big runs, as you saw there with the 95 just a handful of laps ago, still side by side for the lead.
You know, the high downforce was going to make this fun. I mean, the runs, you know, we saw it even every time you enter, you know, a Class A race, NIS Open, whatever like that. The runs that are able on these cars, absolutely ridiculous. We'll see a lot of that tonight, and should set up for an incredible finish. And, you know, even with in the middle stage of these races, some really exciting racing.
And so far, it is exciting up front. Houston now with about a nose ahead of the 24 of Olsen as they did back to turn 3. The shove still being given by the 95 of Gavin Gibbs, who's making that move a little bit of a slide up to the track and a shuffle back out of line. 3 wide for position as the 99, or rather not the 99, the 49 of Casey Heschel will try to find his way and try to split the middle very close on a pinch. But Nick Olsen will get the advantage as they've completely broken up top.
I thought for a second the 95 Gavin Gibbs was going to be let back in there by the 49 of Casey Heschel, but unable to do that. I just think he ran out of time, and the 95 will now try to probably get in front of the 51 car of Ray Rogers.
Well, at least the only good thing about getting shuffled out of line, at least this early in the race, is you're able to get it all back up. If you make a mistake, if you're trying to figure out yourself in the draft, if let's say you lose the draft now, it won't necessarily be as big of a factor as compared to, let's say, losing the draft with about 5 laps to go. So the 95 will shuffle back to about the 13th spot, where there is that side-by-side battle you mentioned there. Jarrett, the 51 of Ray Rogers, and his Toyota Camry making a move up top pretty much all by himself and not much help. And at this point, it's all about the side draft as Houston goes back for the race lead again.
You know, that sequence right there with the 95 car really showed you how important organization was. When Houston in that top line was all discombobulated like that, Houston actually fell back to about 4th or 5th place in line compared to the inside cars. But now they're back going, and Houston, again, challenging for the lead on Olsen.
And now Olsen will have another shot and another challenge by the Camry in the number 20 up top. Houston having that push once again at about 4 cars, now about 5 if you count the driver a little bit further back in that group. That's number 6 machine of Chris Worrell. He's also finding his way. Ray Rogers has also caught up in the draft. So now they've got a formidable line up top. And one thing to know, I'd say probably, Jarrett, I think, especially early in this race, you're not probably looking to go to, let's say, a strategy if you stay green. And right now you're seeing a bunch of drivers experiment to the high line as here comes the 99 of James Lowe looking for the lead. Door-to-door contact with Nick Olsen, but they'll stay straight together.
Yeah, I mean, that was almost end game right there. I mean, the 99 just almost did not handle that push, and Olsen was almost the one on the bad receiving end of that. And Houston looks like he's going to ditch him after that one and head to the low side for the first time in this race after being behind Olsen.
Yeah, so finally Houston will make his way down low. Olsen will shift back to about 3rd on that inside groove, and it'll change the complexity once again. Here's the 99 of Lowe now with a major push from the 53 of Robert Roeder, trying to make something work atop again and maybe shuffle back to the race lead like we saw with Olsen. That could have been disastrous there. That slight amount of contact, basically no margins of error here, Jarrett, especially at a track so narrow like Daytona.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, you mentioned strategy. It's hard to come up with strategy at a place like this when in the matter of a second, the entire field can be wiped out with just a simple mistake, getting pushed or pushing too hard. So I don't think strategy is going to, you know, really be thought about much because all these drivers know how quick a caution can come out and how the complexity of the race can change.
Yeah, yellows will definitely be a factor. If we get a lot of those, that'll also shake up in the way drivers could go down pit road. Maybe the drivers will look for a general consensus, but some might look for more fuel, maybe some tires along the way. But at least on the super speedways, a tire wear isn't too dangerous. It's not necessarily something big to worry about. Apart from, let's say, the exit off pit road, that'll be the most dangerous part is when driver's loose. That was the 16. I believe that also might have actually, that was the 15 of Tracy Passons that had a little bit of a moment to the trial wheel, had a clip to the apron, and now will fall all the way back. Could have been very big as they head back to turn 2, still side by side for the race lead. A bunch of drivers complimenting nice save to the 15 of Passons as they was trying to work through the tri-oval, but again, back out front, it is still tense. Here comes Olsen with the push. It seems as though the push from the 49 of Heschel to the inside worked its way up top. So now he's leading that line, and now about a 4-car train will work themselves up top. Still tense early in this race, very surprising.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you're right there. Like, when you clip the grass, in most cases, it could be game over. But a great job there by Passons to hold on to it and make sure we stay green and not collect a few of the other racers in this one.
And they continue side by side. They did have a shootout a little bit earlier before this season opener, and Kyle Smalley was the one to at least get the standings and at least atop the standings over that. Smalley currently sitting all the way back in the 22nd spot, or at least sitting all the way back there. Or actually, no, it's the 35th spot. That's Keith Smalley in the number 2 machine. Kyle Smalley, 10 laps down in 35th, did not make it to the green flag. So it seems as though he won't be able to at least contend for that standings lead in the shootout at the moment. But one of those drivers who made his way to 3rd in that points, Jarrett, was the 49 of J.R. Houston, or the 20 of J.R. Houston rather, was looking up top, about third in the standings, and this will give him a big shove as now he's got Nick Olsen again to help.
Yeah, for sure. Nick Olsen's been doing a great job so far this race. Led the first 4 or 5 laps, and now he's doing a great job just tucked behind the leader. I thought for a second there he was going to try to move to the high side and regain the lead, but he looks to be, oh, there he goes. The commentator's curse has done me again. It looks to the high side and has help from behind. Looks like he'll be able to complete the pass here. He probably won't be able to clear it, but back to the front so far, Nick Olsen.
He'll have the advantage about at a quarter panel, almost able to clear, but not enough to get there to the shortest way around the racetrack as Houston gets the shove. Once again, we'll have another drive to help. The 88 of Jesse Cottrell will also try to form it, or at least try to make something down to the inside groove, and that's broken up a little bit up top as door-to-door contact a little bit with the 49. They're still trying to find some sort of way to shuffle to the race lead as drivers behind them. You look at the 15th spot, big gaggle of cars about 2 rows deep, or a couple rows deep side by side. The 57 of Alexander Cronke, Calvin Miller, you see Travis Rucker, William Rucker. The guy's also working a big amount of shuffling as they're all trying to find themselves within the draft as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm honestly amazed that this race has been stayed green as long as it has. I mean, there have been some incredible racing. Very interesting. And we see a lap car here right in front of the leaders. They're able to get by him with no issue there. I believe that's a 31 car of Marcus Adams. But yeah, I mean, they've been doing a great job racing, keeping it interesting, but still keeping it clean as well.
And now this might give a big shuffle, almost 3 wide as Olsen tried to pick through the middle of the 31, and just previously mentioned a lap car, Marcus Adams. He had found his way back to the racetrack, and now he's found some clear space, but everybody was shuffling to get around that Chevrolet Camaro, but nobody else seems to change for position. Rather, the 88 of Jesse Cottrell fell out of line. Now he's going to have another shove up top. Here comes Nick Olsen back to the top of the racetrack as he'll try to challenge again.
You know, we've seen the high line get some advantages so far in this one, but the low line has obviously just been more organized this entire time. And I think drivers prefer to be on the low line and then go to the high line to make a move, but the low line for sure has been more organized so far in this one. I think that's a trend we'll see to continue as this race gets into the later stages.
And of course, talk about still early racing here, Jared. I mean, drivers, I think right now have been fairly aggressive for lap number 14 out of 90. Still a relatively long way to go here. And I know that probably the conservative strategy might not be the best, because let's say if there's no yellows, you probably don't have a lot of trouble up front, and then you're pretty much bracing for nothing at that point, staying near the back. But Daytona, always so unpredictable. You can have something flip in just a moment. You can have the flip of a switch come right as you probably least expect it. But so far, still aggressive racing yet, as again, Houston still leading the back into turn 3.
Yeah, you said flip the switch. You can also have a flip of a car, in a matter of an instant. Someone, isn't anticipating a bump, or someone switches to the high side like we just saw with the 6 car right in front of Nick Olsen. That could have been disastrous, but these drivers held on, and yeah, you really can't predict what's going to happen here on the high banks of Daytona.
And Worrell will take the lead to the tri-oval, but not for long. The push to Nick Olsen will last just a little bit as here he comes back to the high side with the help from the 88, and they'll try to be side by side again for the race lead. Worrell with a power move up top and then switching back down to the bottom to guard against Houston, but it may not be the guard against Houston that matters. It'll be the guard against Nick Olsen. He'll have the nose out front as they go back to turn 3.
Yeah, I think Nick Olsen appreciated being slept in front of like that in such a very, I'd be shocked if the 6 car was cleared on that one. But, Olsen thought he was going to contend for a little bit, but the bottom, again, just seems way more organized than the top. And Houston may make a move to go up in front of him, and he does.
And Houston with the shove. He'll have the momentum off to the tri-oval. He'll take the race lead that lap, but almost contact and almost door-to-door between the 24 and the 6 of Worrell, but they stay clean so far. Gotta imagine that's still breathtaking, still hard-pounding as again more contact. The 49 loose on the racetrack up to turn 2. Big crash to the outside wall.
And that's the big one we've been talking about. And there were signs of that happening for the last couple of laps. Stuff getting dicey up the front, people going from the top to the bottom, bottom to the top, etc. But yeah, that's a product of this racing, and hopefully not too many cars are terminally damaged from that one.
Well, there's a lot of cars with damage. You see the 57 machine damaged, Casey Heschel with damage, James Lowe in the 99. He got collected in it, albeit I believe with minimal damage at best. And a couple more drivers got collected into that. A very big crash. We talked about the aggressive racing there, Jared. I think there it came to its downfall at the end. We'll try to take a replay as to where that started. It began with the crash machine, the 49. I believe it may have been door-to-door contact between him and the 88 of Cottrell as they were trying to pinch to the inside, and then the 49 trying to gather it all up, comes back up the racetrack. It's in to a couple more drivers there. and a big hit to the outside wall for the 49. And already early on, a big hole to be stepped in. We'll take a look at it. Here's the contact between the 88 and the 49, and then just trying to keep it straight near the banking, trying to swerve the car back to stable position, and then gets right into the 17, hard up into the 22 up top. That was Joey Piccolella. And a big crash, about a handful of cars involved.
Yeah, and the contact was minimal. Once you get down onto that apron, especially in the corners, it's so hard to, correct that back again, and the balance of your car is all thrown off and everything. So did a really good job to save it there at first, but then there's not much he can do there to try to hold on to it and avoid that from happening.
So our first caution at lap number 18 of the 90 scheduled here for the first race of the Four Corners Racing League. Here's an extra look from the 17 as he got slammed. Really nothing you could do, just a passenger, and then everyone trying to be hard on the brakes. The 95 of Hibbs, the driver who was just up front not too long ago, Gavin Hibbs was involved in that. You see the 57 swerving back around, the 17 machine. He's also trying to get around. That's Aaron Adcock in his Ford Mustang, as right now Houston and the rest of the guys on the lead lap have just brought down everyone to pit road. So the consensus should be 4 tires of fuel here, right, Jared?
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, just to try to stay on the same playing field as everybody. Maybe some people in the back of the pack who want to have some of the fun the leaders are having up front. Maybe they want to be involved with that. Maybe they'll take 2. But I think 4 tires and fuel is the way to go here.
So it seems as though 4 tires and fuel will be indeed the way to go. J.R. Houston will lead the group off of pit road. Actually, no, Nick Olson will lead the group off pit road. Houston will come out second, and William Rucker will be the driver actually that beat them both out of pit road. So maybe no tires there for the driver of the 77. He'll take over what should be the race lead, and now we'll see what Olson and Houston do. They should be second and third. Chris Wohl into fourth. Calvin Miller in the 48. Haven't talked about him all night throughout the opening stage of this race, but he will sit out of pit road in this top 5. So at least now, Jarrett, we should have at least somewhat of a catching of the breath moment. Wouldn't you say that you're pretty much hard racing? I mean, there were 2x2 for a bunch of laps up to that point. Very aggressive driving, battles for the lead, battles for position all across the racetrack. And then now you have that yellow, and it should be that opportunity to give you a chance to either regroup or catch your breath as you're moving forward here.
Yeah, most definitely. I think one thing to pay attention to will be the William Rucker possibly being in the lead now. Is he probably took 2 tires, maybe no tires, but he hasn't been up at the front already. So they really don't know how to deal with him, what he's going to do. And actually, he's coming down pit road again. So forget everything I just said. But yeah, I do believe the drivers will catch their breath, and I think they'll kind of see the dangers of doing what they were doing before. And again, I think they'll all look at the bottom right of their screen and realize there is 90 laps in this one. We're only, 19 laps through. So I do think they'll catch their breath and try to take away some of those laps, maybe single file, maybe double file again, but a little bit less aggressive than we saw before the caution.
So a correction here as we're going to go back to the green flag. Nick Olson will be the leader. It seems as though William Rucker had missed his pit stall, so he's going to recheck that, go down pit road, and actually get his service. And that's something, obviously, another part of the racing here. The sim racing, just trying to find your pit box, try to find that sign in the midst of all the cars. You can kind of lose it and lose track of where it actually is on the track, or at least in the pit stall, so you can easily overshoot, and then you have to go all the way back around before you end up actually pitting. So that was the case for the 77, which will bring Grit Marketing's Nick Olson back to the front. He'll lead them back with Jarrett Houston to the top side. Arguably, Jarrett, the 2 most aggressive drivers so far early in this race. Calvin Miller, Chris Rowe will be your row number 2, with Mike Campbell and Calvin Allison switching over for row number 3. Your thoughts here on what we should expect now that we saw our first opening stage of racing?
I can sit here and tell you what I think I'd expect, for the rest of the race. But honestly, Daytona's unpredictable. These drivers are unpredictable. And I think they're having a blast out there. It looks like they're having a lot of fun going from the top to bottom and vice versa. So I feel like, we're going to continue to see some really hard, intense racing. And honestly, I hate to say this because it's so cliche, but cautions do breed caution. So I think we'll see a fair bit of that so far. And, yeah, Nick Olson looks like he's getting ready here to, I thought he was going to peel off there for a second, but gets back on track.
Well, cautions breed cautions is a cliche, but it's not wrong. It's correct on, I think, every end, especially when you go super speedway racing. We're going to take a look back to the green flag on lap number 21. Pace car will make its left down at pit road. Olson and Houston will lead us back to the green flag. A big push by the 6 of Chris Wohl to give that advantage to Olson. No help yet for the Camry up top, and Olson will have that charge up to about 3rd on the inside lane as they dip back to turn 1.
One thing about Chris Rules, he started this race in the 28th position, and he's already made it up to 3rd place. Again, Mike Campbell, started 33rd up to 4th. So Worrell and Campbell, they started from the bottom, and now they're here, to say the least. But I think that'll show them that they've been able to make it through the pack. They'll be able to be aggressive when they need to be, and I feel like they'll be the most interesting to watch here as we come up on, what, 1/3 of the way through this one?
It should be 1/3 of the way. Here's a move by Mike Campbell to find his way to the inside. I like the Drake reference you made there. Let's start it from the bottom. Now we're here, but nonetheless, that 23 may be flirting with the higher side. He'll dip with it for now, but he does have the space to go back low if necessary. It's about to close up with the 47 of Holt Johnson to find his way over to the inside lane. A little bit less of an organized line, should say, here back into turn 1. But it's about 4 cars to give them the strength in numbers, as Olsen will get that push, and again, will shoot out to the race lead.
And Nick Olsen probably is looking, through his windshield. He's also doing a lot of driving in his rearview mirror there, just trying to make sure the pushes behind him are going to be good. He can anticipate them, be ready for them, see what runs are coming, stuff like that.
And again, that's something we'll refer back to, let's say, if you have a spotter. Not many drivers have, let's say, a physical spotter, somebody that they know actually spotting for them. A lot of them can revert to just the normal and the default iRacing spotter, which does a good job nonetheless, but it is still a tough job to be there, especially when you're leading this group, Jared. I think you say it well that Olsen probably looking more in the rearview mirror than he is looking out front. There's nothing to see out of the front apart from just the banking and the track in front of them, maybe making sure if there's lap cars up ahead, but most of the action will happen right behind. The drivers giving him the push, the drivers up top trying to contend against him with a push up there, and all the things happening, drivers swerving in and out of lanes, trading positions. That's one of the biggest things, and especially near the end of the race, that should probably be the biggest factor when it comes to blocking everybody for the race. See, no blocking up top though. Mike Campbell will have a nose out front to turn 3.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Kenneth, but I would prefer to be in Nick Olsen's position right now. Just leading the race, ticking off laps, looking behind you, clean racetrack in front of you, on the bottom. I feel like that's the most comfortable place to be in this race so far.
And the catbird seat could have its benefits, could also have its doubts. And usually where you see it is if, let's say, you're in the front. I'd say probably yesterday and last night's Daytona 500 could give you just a big reference as to how being in the catbird seat might not be the best strategy, because you're all the way out front. Obviously, you're pretty much bracing for impact. The drivers will have the big pushes. If they have the help, they'll have enough to get up to the lead. We're seeing it a couple times here already in this opening stage of the race. And when you're all the way up in Nick Olsen's position, you're doing a lot of guarding near the rearview mirror, but you can easily find yourself at a place of misjudgment. Maybe you find a big one up top, you try to block, it may be too late. Maybe the crossover happens back down low, and then you don't have the advantage anymore. It's so many factors that play just in how super speedway racing is, and I think there is just a misconception with super speedway racing. A lot of it is just naturally the conception of wide open, flat through, and you're just turning left. But it's more than that. You're looking around, you're seeing the runs as here comes the 6 of Chris Worrell. Had enough of the bottom. He's going to be door to door with the race leader off turn 2.
And a big thing of it is mental gymnastics, and like you said, being able to know when these pushes are coming and how to deal with them. Brad Keselowski said it best last night. I didn't feel like I made a mistake. I can't drive everybody else's car. So a lot of times it's not even your problem when there's a wreck. When you get wrecked, when you collect someone to wreck, it's the people around you that cause you to get involved in those things. But yeah, great job there by the 6 car Chris Worrell to get in front of Olsen there and take the lead for this one.
Well, the classic one punch made its way to the top side, found its way back to the bottom, and that's good enough to get him to the race lead. Jarrett Houston is still holding out hope with Mike Campbell at the top. There are a formidable line up top, but it's only just them two. There's nobody else really behind them apart from, I'd probably say, the 9 of Bryson Fitzgerald, who's kind of been trading places to the inside, outside. He's been a little indecisive as to where he wants to go, but now it seems as though he'll actually gang up with the guys up top and try to make something work for the time being. The 23 will have enough to clear, but will he go all the way down? He won't, so we have the push again from the 20. And I think you say it best there, Jarrett, where obviously you can't drive everybody's race cars. You can't control what anybody else does, but at the same time, you have to make sure you're conserving your own race car, making sure you can bring it home in one piece. But that's still a long way from now. Lap number 27 now starting under here as they head back to turn 1, and now still Worrell with the lead as he got that push. No run from the outside just yet.
Yeah, Worrell did a good job there. Nick Olsen gave a little bit of a show, but Nick Olsen goes to the high side to block off the run of the 23 in Houston. But and it looks like he will have the steam and the momentum down the backstretch to retake the lead. Unsure if he'll be able to clear going into 3. And he does. Comes down in front of the 6 of Worrell. And man, that was dangerous, but it looked just like what Worrell did to him in the trial just a few laps ago.
Yeah, giving a little payback as they head out of turn 4. So Olsen again will have the lead. Here's the 6 trying another crossover as they're running on board with J.R. Houston. I think the best show in the house. The 6, though, near the middle, spinning across the racetrack. What a save by a 6 of Worrell to keep it straight. But that absolutely broke up everything behind them as they're 3 wide for second.
I'm speechless. That save by Worrell was incredible. He get helped out a little bit by the right rear of his car going into the door, I believe, of J.R. Houston's car. So unsure if he'll have damage on that, but that was an incredible save, and I think the entire field is thankful for that one. But the steam of this run by Worrell on Olsen here will play a factor, and of course, yeah, he just drives right by him like he's a barn on the side of the road, and he takes the lead back from Nick Olsen.
And he'll have the nose, but the question is, how much help will he get? Will he get the big shove by Houston? At the moment, it is a resounding no, but it'll become a resounding yes. Actually, no, it'll stay no. Here comes Houston, had enough of pushing the 6. He'll be 3 wide for the race lead, and he'll have the shove from Campbell to give him out. Back into turn 1, he'll have the nose out front.
I think Houston did that because I just don't honestly think he trusts Worrell after what just happened. I mean, Worrell's been aggressive all race, no problem with that. But, he almost just wrecked the field right there. So I don't think Houston wanted anything to do with that, and that's why we saw that happen. But Worrell gets right back in behind Nick Olsen there on the bottom side.
I think if you find a conversation to take place as you're riding near the backside of the 24 of Olsen, still leading this race, you mentioned the mental gymnastics, the mental game you're playing at a place like Daytona. It also comes down to a game of trust, and you saw that there with Jared Houston as he's get put in the outside wall. A big hit by the 47 of Johnson, sending him straight to the barrier, and now the 48 will also have damage as well. Campbell gets shoveled back. I was gonna say the trust game for Houston seemed to have been working, but now at this point, significant damage. He's falling back like a rock.
Yeah, that will be a significant amount of damage. Hit the wall like that, the entire right side of the car at speed. At a track like this where aerodynamics are so important, maybe he can get on pit road if we get a caution, fix some optional repairs, or optional, excuse me. But I don't think we'll see that race car back to full health for the rest of this one. Unless they have a fast repair, they might, I'm unsure.
Yeah, they probably will be, but for Houston, it'll be falling through this entire field. That damage certainly will not help. And now that broke up the entire relationship that he had with the 23 of Campbell. And there is indeed one fast repair. So the good news for Houston on this end is that although he'll lose all the track position, although he'll lose all the time, he can head down pit road whenever he may choose to so, and he can get a fast repair, easily get that car back up to tip-top shape. But the only problem would be, on the other hand, as a trade-off, would be using that fast repair now, and then if something happens later in the race that gives him damage, then he is just pretty much stuck to having the repairs down pit road. But how about the shuffling up front? Olsen made his move to the top to give the shove to the 9 machine, and then ditches him immediately. Worrell still with the race lead, and a lot of guys battling for position.
Yeah, I think a lot of the drivers who saw what happened there with Houston are like, all right, let's take a breath. Let's calm down a little bit. We see the top, what is it, like 8 or 9 here. Just running single file here. And then a pretty large gap to the second cell of cars back there. So I feel like they're going to try to calm down a little bit. Worrell is just going to be in the lead for now. But Olsen, I mean, he's been sporty already. So not surprised here to see him go to the high side. But I don't know if anyone's going to go with him.
And so far, nobody electing. Maybe the 9 might be flirting a little bit, but just staying down to the bottom, staying safe. I mentioned that second pack starting at about 11th behind. Calvin Miller in the 48, just had mentioned him with that damage in that recent incident there with the 20 machine. He's there following with the 87 of Patrick Green, the 77, who we mentioned a little bit earlier. William Rucker had found his way down pit road. You're riding on board with Calvin Allison as they head back to turn 3. He's one of the only drivers to head up top to follow Nick Olsen, but so far he'll try to get that push to the 47 just a little bit go, and here's the big run down to the tri-oval.
Yeah, we saw that second pack, it was pretty far back there the last time by, but they gained a lot. I feel like it just comes from the disorganization of this lead pack, and, their focus is very much, let's get the best position we can, whereas the second pack was, hey, let's catch back up with those leaders and put our names in the hat to who can win this race. So not that surprised to see them catch back up, and we'll see if any of those cars from back there can kind of dip and dodge their way through up to the lead.
Speaking of drivers catching back up, that will be indeed this second pack led by the 87 of Patrick Green. It used to be the 48, but he got shuffled back now to the bottom side. That top side has the strength in numbers, so they're getting the run significantly, and they might follow along with Campbell and Allison. And again, back to the conversation of trust. I think I didn't really complete it before we had almost a large wreck again near the midway section of this race. However, the trust game is just so important. here at Daytona, where you probably have a driver you want to work with, but you see something happen, you could easily lose trust in them and then not want to work with them at all through the rest of this race. How important do you think the trust game really is, especially when it comes down to people that you're not teammates with, people you don't communicate with? How important will that be as Olsen shuffles to the race lead?
I think that's like going to be the golden rule. I mean, treat others how you want to be treated. If you're going to, show that you're going to go high and help a guy and then you ditch him out to dry, maybe when he's behind you, he does the same thing to you and he leaves you out to dry. So I feel like trust is very important. I feel like these drivers will remember who goes with them, who doesn't, who ditches them, who leaves them out to dry. And, I feel like all this culminates and sets up for a final very interesting 10 laps, very interesting run to the finish, when we get there later in the race. And I feel like that will play a part in who wins this race and who ends up in victory lane.
And so far, as you see, the 20 of Jared Houston did indeed get his fast repair. You saw him just slow over to the apron, and now he has been put at least one lap down. So not a good run for now for the 20 of Houston, but still a semi-long race left. As you see the 47 holding back, as though he did not like what he saw up there in that 47, or at least he's slowing down significantly in his car. Doesn't seem to be any engine trouble, so he's back up the revs and back through the gears through the rest of the field. So it seems as though he was just holding back. But right now, aggressivity is the name of the game. Nick Olsen back again to the top side with Calvin Allison trying to make that outside line work another time and trying to shuffle back to the race lead, but Worrell still with the advantage. They're 2 by 2, about a handful of rows deep.
These drivers are so aggressive. It's so much fun to watch. I mean, Kenneth, I'm sure we've sat here and seen races at Daytona where we saw it last night at Daytona 500. They just sit there, single file, try to take away laps, try to do all that. But, these drivers, they're having fun. They know the risks of racing like this. And at the end of the day, if they get wrecked, they realize it's Daytona. They realize it's super speedway. They realize the runs and the aero on these cars. So I feel like, they're having a blast being this aggressive, but they also know the risks of it as well.
And that's something you have to keep aware of, the risks and the danger that come with getting in a wreck. Obviously, when we talked about that fast repair, and that fast repair does do wonders. I mean, an iRacing gives you a full new, fresh car. I mean, you can go from a car that looks like a modified, if you look like what Tyler Reddick's car looked like last night, and then you can go straight to a brand new race car. That's the benefit that comes with the fast repair. However, it probably won't be nice to know that if you get that fast repair, you can be involved in another wreck, and you also got to remember that this is the season opener. You want to start your season off the right way. This is in the bigger picture. You want to win the biggest race, but if you crash out doing it, you probably won't get a good amount of points to build up for the rest of the season. So that might be, at least to me, the biggest concern that stretches with Daytona. And for now, I think everybody might keep that in check, as most of them single file, but Nick Olsen still trying to flirt to the high side.
Another thing to keep in mind is oftentimes fast repair, when you come down pit road, is often auto-selected. So a lot of times drivers might accidentally use their fast repair. And I hope that's not the case for some of these guys out here in this front pack, because I could see them needing it pretty soon.
And they might need it if they get into a wreck, but so far it's grown a little more calm out to the front. Olsen, though, still trying to lead that charge. And here comes Worrell again, trying to go for the race lead. We've seen so much here, Jared, as here comes Olsen, a push by himself, 3 wide to the race lead. Possibly it might die out going into turn 3, but still 3 wide as Olsen has no help.
If there was a Fan Choice Award for most fun driver to watch so far, I believe the 6 of Chris Worrell and Nick Olsen would be competing for that award, as they've been an absolute joy to watch so far in this one.
And it's been so fun to watch guys like Olsen, guys like Worrell, and now even guys like Bryson Fitzgerald, who we had not seen within the first 15 laps, starting to find their way into the conversation. And it is tough as Olsen almost scrubs the outside wall, but he'll be okay, sticking forward back to a 5-car train up to the top side. So it'll still say them maintained to the back straightaway. It is so close up here, Jared, and so tight. I mean, I'm not sure whether these drivers are just having that fun right now on the racetrack, but at least for now, they're keeping themselves in the draft. I think they're playing the opposite game as to what happened in the real life 500 last night.
Yeah, for sure. We mentioned Nick Olsen fell back there to, 5th or 6th? That's the furthest back in the pack he's been this entire race, which is really a testament to his driving and his super speedway skills. And, I'll sort of give him a gold medal so far in the mental gymnastics, if we're going to run with that. And, I feel like he's having a lot of fun leading laps, being at the front, but, he could have even more fun there scouting out what he's going to do next there from 6th place.
And at least Olsen, I think I've noticed this the most throughout this entire race so far as we're closing in on the halfway section of this race, that Olsen's been one of those drivers, or at least the driver, to do the most side-by-side action, or at least go to the outside, to the inside, and trade slots. He's been pretty much one of the only drivers to do so, not only for the race lead, but for just position entirely. To see him back now again, trying to support the guys up top in the 31. And guess who's back in the game? James Lowe in the 99. Started up front, fell a little bit back to this race, but now he's back in potential for the race lead.
Yeah, he's leading that 3-car train on the high side. It's really them on the high side, then everybody else on the low line of this track, kind of in a train formation there. And we're going to see if that's going to pay off. Looks like they're losing some of that speed on the high side as Olsen drops down. It's now a 2-car run up there.
And now everybody pretty much staying single file all the way to about, I'd say, probably the 87 of Patrick Green, currently sitting in 20th. Now it's back to 21st as Raymond Lees will be all by himself, at least all the way to the bottom. That is the entire train, but here comes Chris Worrell, will be that driver still to lead this race, and no moves again to the top side. It seems as though it might have died out. I think that might be the cause for concern here, Jared. You can have the high side build up quickly, but as soon as it starts to dissipate, it will fall immensely and hit rock bottom, as now they're starting to fall back to the field again.
For sure. I mean, this is really the first time all race. You mentioned the catch your breath moment for that last caution. This kind of feels like a catch your breath moment right now. I say that Nick Olsen goes to the high side and the 9 of Bryson Fitzgerald joins him, but that was risky. They were going back in line behind the 6 Chris Worrell. But yeah, I feel like everyone at the back's kind of just holding their breath. They know how long of the race this is, and they know how much time's left.
So they're still trying to work. Olsen trying to work all by himself, but it is Chris Worrell at the top of this field off turn 4. They're wrecking right behind. The 99 of Lowe got into it. Hibbs got into it. Hard hit to the inside wall for both the 95 and the 99. I saw one more driver also collected in it as well. And a big crash as we come close to the halfway segment of this race.
Yeah, that was a big hit to the inside wall. Hopefully they have a fast repair left. That was kind of came out of nowhere, right? Like I said, we're gonna catch our breath. We're gonna solidify our gains a little bit and just kind of hang out for a few laps. But man, that was a hard impact on the inside wall there, and luckily more cars weren't involved in that one.
We'll have to try and take a look to see what happened. And it all started down to the bottom. That's the 88 of Cottrell, who was trying to swerve down off turn 4. It seems as though the car got separated or got loose at least. I'm not sure whether he might have had help from the 95, but then the 88 tags the 99. And look at that hard lick and a pound to the inside wall for both the 99 and the 95. And a really hard hit to that barrier. And the 88 seemed to have gone away mostly unscathed, albeit with maybe some right side damage. And we'll take another look at it as there's the 95 with absolutely no front bumper. And again, all started off turn 4. You mentioned it as a catch your breath moment, but one little move, one little mistake, and for that it was disaster for 3 drivers.
Yeah, I'm trying to see if there was any contact made, if he just lost it off turn number 4. It's I say lose it off turn 4. It's not a hard thing to do. Yeah, it looks like just got loose unless there's some netcode or something. But yeah, I mean, more cars lucky not to be involved in that one, kind of the inside. And yeah, 2 cars there just slapping that inside wall super hard. Hopefully they'll be able to get repairs on those.
And luckily that fast repair will be given, I'm sure, for the 95 and probably also for the 99. It will be important to have that fast repair clicked in so they can reset their cars and be back in contention for this race. And unfortunate for the 95 of Gavin Hibbs, who started in the top 15, started about 14th. He was a ride along with the driver a little bit further back who had the first view of this incident. That's the 22 who was involved in that first crash, and hard on the brakes, seeing that smoke, seeing the driver swerve through, almost contact with the driver right in front. Oh, that was very close as he almost hit the 95 coming back up the track.
Definitely kept his foot in it, though. I will say that entire time, he didn't slow down too much and did a great job getting by those cars. Probably some dirt, some grass on the front end of that car, but luckily the splitter did not dig into the grass there, as we saw in real life Daytona this past weekend.
Going lawn mowing out to the tri-oval, probably the best description of that. Right now, 4 tires and fuel for everybody down pit road, including your leader, Nick Olsen, who had found his way back to the outside. He's going to lead the charge off pit road, and look at the shuffle. Chris McLean in the 42 with a quick pit stop. He'll be out second. Marcus Adams, the 31, saw him working to the high side third. All the drivers who were stuck within that top 10 will find themselves back still within this top 10, but a big shuffle of the field as we've had our second caution and a wreck involving 3 cars. You won't miss any of the action. We'll take a break and go side by side. You are watching the Four Corners Racing League season opener from the Daytona International Speedway with coverage right here on STN Racing.
iRacing is a sim racing game that combines a true-to-life racing experience with an online community of virtual racers from all around the globe. iRacing offers a multitude of officially licensed cars and tracks, laser scanned with millimeter accuracy. Their car models and mechanical systems are based on real-world physics, engineered in cooperation with manufacturers and race teams. Their skill license system ranges from rookie to pro, ensuring members are always pitted against those with similar skill sets. Members are able to sign up for a weekly race series, compete in time trials, host a private race with friends, and participate in racing leagues created and run by the community. With over 170,000 members, iRacing works in partnership with renowned motorsports organizations like NASCAR to deliver virtual races based on the real-life NASCAR Cup Series, as well as many other series on the NASCAR ladder. iRacing also features team racing, providing a variety of options for members to create and manage their own teams. Race with friends or real-world teammates in full-length endurance events like the 24 Hours of Daytona, Spa 24, or the Bathurst 12-Hour. Additional partners include IMSA, World of Outlaws, Supercars, and IndyCar, allowing members to race in their very own Indianapolis 500, Bathurst 1000, Chili Bowl, and many more iconic events. This is iRacing, delivering the most authentic racing experience short of getting into a real race car. Sign up today at iRacing.com.
Welcome back to coverage of the Four Corners Racing League from the Daytona International Speedway. Jarrett Maki with Kenneth Bueno along with you for the ride. Zach Johnson currently punching the buttons for us up in the production trailer. It'll be Nick Olson and Marcus Adams, the two that'll lead us back to the green flag in what was a chaotic first half of the race. 2 cautions to bring us under calamity. 15 lead changes in the first half of this race. Should be expecting a lot more as the pace car will make its left down to pit road. Olson and Adams, the 24 and the 31, back up the gears and back under green from Daytona.
Olson's been a mainstay in that top 3, top 5 area. Now he's back in the lead. I'm sure, again, he missed the sight of a clear racetrack in front of him as they head off into turn number 1. Looks like Adams, the gap on him is about a car length back, so I feel like the inside will be more organized here as they end up eventually coming onto the backstretch.
And they have a lot more drivers up top, including one driver we have not talked about all night long. The driver who started 35th on the racetrack, Kevin Orlando Jr. in the 27, now having a shot to work forward to the race lead if he can push that 31 and or shuffle him out of line for the time being. But Olson now still in that catbird seat. He's been holding it for pretty much most of the race. Fell back, but that pit stop gave him the advantage as now the 68 of Chris Webb will also try to work with him and still side by side for about second spot.
That 31 of Adams I mentioned to you over break was the first lap car we had in this race about 20 laps ago, so it's wild to see him back up to second place and be in a shot to contend for the lead here in this one against Nick Olson.
Yeah, and you talked about just how quickly things change. Maybe guys like Jared Houston, Alexander Kroenke, the 2 drivers that are the only ones on the, or at least under the lead lap. They can also find their way back. They are currently, though, battling for that lucky dog spot as Kroenke is currently sitting in the 57 all the way to the inside line, but then a little bit further, Jared Houston kind of further back in the draft. But it's hard to take your eyes off the battle up front. Adams with another push. He had the side-by-side action with the 24 of Olson, but still, again, side-by-side as more drivers finding their way into the mix.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Chris Webb, I believe, in the 68 car, he's doing a great job there pushing Olson. The pushes have been consistent. The pushes have been very squared up with Olson's bumper, and those bumpers do line up, both Camaros. So I feel like he's gonna really appreciate Olson there, staying ahead of him, holding the line in the corners, and making sure that they're getting through this as clean as they possibly can, while being as aggressive as they want to be.
And they've been so aggressive here, Jared. I think we can account for both of it here up in the booth, just how aggressive it has been for the time being, at least with the amount of drivers that have shuffled their way in and out of line. And remember, you mentioned a little bit earlier that started 14th on that restart, Chris Worrell in the number 6 machine, who had just had the lead not too long ago. Well, he's already picked his way up to 8th and probably even more positions as he's trying to work that top side. He's been aggressive early on, aggressive still to the middle of this race, and at lap number 50, he's starting to make it work and trying to lead up that charge.
Yeah, we started 15th in this one after a slow pit stop. You know, we think maybe he repaired some damage, maybe he got 4 tires, something of the like. But yeah, he's already on that high side, the 5th car in line on that high side, and the high side seems to be the one moving right now. So not too long until he will be right back up there, and I'm sure his pal Nick Olsen, who we've been racing with all night, will be happy to see him again.
And moving indeed, top 2 pretty much clear to the inside line, but both the 68 and the 31 won't make that move, and Webb and Adams will still have their hope up top, and they'll again be side by side. The shortest way around the racetrack will be the best. Again, one thing to mention here as you work through Daytona, I think Talladega also holds the same sentiment here, Jarrett, that the checkups here are so dramatic on some of these lines, especially all the way to the bottom, because you're trying to give that push, but if your driver may be behind second or third in the inside lane, you don't want to give the push because you don't want to push the pusher, maybe make a sandwich effect, and then put one driver and multiple drivers, including yourself, in trouble. So then you see that outside lane, although they have the disadvantage in either of the corners since they are not the shortest way around the racetrack, they have the momentum off the banking, so they get the run off the corners, and then especially down the back straightaway that we've seen, that outside gets the large push. There's no checkouts up there, and then they're able to shuffle to the race lead, as you just saw there with Chris Webb.
Yeah, you know, there's advantages to both sides, advantages to both lanes, disadvantages to both lanes, and it's really incredible how even the lanes are. I mean, you know, all races have pretty much been side by side in the corners, on the backstretch, all that stuff. So, yeah, it really just comes down to numbers. You know, who's on the high side, who's on the low side, are the people leading those lines, holding their lines, you know, the sandwich effect, like you mentioned. So, so many factors play into it, and like you alluded to earlier, it is a lot more than just holding your foot down, turning left at the end of the straightaway, turning left in the trial. It's way more than that. And yeah, they're doing a great, it's a master class of that we're seeing tonight.
Everyone so far keeping themselves steady. Only incidents we've seen, just mostly drivers getting loose on the track, and it's not necessarily multi-car incidents, at least with somebody getting turned or somebody getting doored. We have almost seen that a couple times tonight so far as they cross the line to lap number 53, but however, it is still contentious up top of the 31 of Adams, still now side by side with the grit machine of Nick Olsen. And also another thing to mention, Daytona in the season opener, I think the biggest race, I'm going to revert back to what I said about winning here and at least trying to find your way in footing in the points. Sort of a similar system to what we see on the NASCAR side. If you win, you're in the playoffs, or at least what they call it, the chase, the final 12 races to decide the champion at the end of this Four Corner Racing League season. So although you try to be risky, you try to build up the points, it also could be about taking that checkered flag, because when you do, you won't have to worry about any of the races after, and you can focus on that hunt for the title. As here's the 96 of Matt Rogers leading the charge up top again.
You know, not just that, you know, if there's a driver who isn't so confident in, you know, maybe their intermediate package or their short track package, maybe they try to go super hard in this one, you know, try to be aggressive, get to the front, try to win the race to make the playoffs if they're not confident in being able to do so at any other dates on the calendar.
Yeah, that'll be very big, especially drivers who are either further back in the field, the drivers who don't necessarily have that performance. Maybe they're not as skilled, or maybe they just don't have enough confidence in their ability to compete with the drivers on the other tracks, and that super speedway is their chance to get up to the field, compete with the guys up top, because all these cars, although they're different manufacturers, all of them are still equal. Anyone from about 35th all the way up to first can try to find their way to the race lead, but it's contact up front. Nick Olsen involved. The 96 goes spinning down to the trial wheel. The 31 of Marcus Adams involved. The 2 also involved in there as well, Keith Smalley, and the Sims machine, who just had a glimpse of the race lead, has gone around in trouble off turn, or at least going into turn 1.
Yeah, Marcus Adams and Matt Rogers there. I mean, Adams went down to try to pass Rogers, kind of hang him out to dry. I feel like Rogers might have came down, maybe tried to block a little bit, and that just, you know, in front of the field. In the trial was as well the worst place for that to happen, and that's the result of it right there.
We'll try to take a look at it. It all started right there. I was just about to mention how Adams had tried to split the middle on the 96, but it seemed as though the 96 just tried to pinch just a little bit lower, maybe made that effort to block the 31, but it was way too late at that point. They both made door-to-door contact, and the fender of the 96 sent him sideways. As we'll take another look at it again. Here's through the trial. We'll go side by side. Olsen had a little moment. Almost got completely tagged around, but the worst of it came for the 96 and also for the 2 of Keith Smalley. The 83 got tagged right there to the end. That was Travis Rucker in his Toyota Camry as everyone's scrambling to get around. And another big incident should here. Jarrett said everyone back to the pit lane, but at least for the 96, it's going to be all about repairs on his machine.
Yeah, and, you know, we mentioned it the whole broadcast. I mean, that's the product of this racing, and the drivers knew that, and this should be a good onboard camera here, you know, right behind the action. But yeah, you know, Adams tried to make the move in the middle, kind of maybe leave out Rogers to dry, and I feel like Rogers was not happy with that and tried to come down. Like, yeah, it could have been net code, who knows? But yeah, look at that, wow. And then sadly gets collected there right as they get out of the trial oval.
And it's on board with Keith Smalley and his machine as he got the fresh look right there, maybe even more of a look than what he wanted as he tagged along and got hit with the 96, and now he has a bumper completely torn off of his race car, and now it should be everyone down pit road and getting damaged. But for everyone else up front that have clean race cars, it should be 4 tires or just fuel. Actually, one driver will try to stay out. Kevin Orlando made the fake, but nobody goes with them, so everyone down pit road, and it is busy down pit road.
I think Orlando might have been thinking he wouldn't have been the only one to stay out there. He saw Olsen coming. He's like, yeah, why not? Let's give it a shot. And so they're all down pit road now. Olsen, I mean, you know, for how long he's been up front this race, his race car is so incredibly clean. I don't feel like he's had to use a fast repair yet. So he has one in his back pocket. That could be nice for a late race restart, maybe, if others don't have that same luxury.
And now what we're doing here, Jared, is setting ourselves up for a restart that should happen just outside or maybe just inside of 30 laps to go. So already, just as quickly as we drop the green flag of this event, and just as quickly as we're going to go to end this event, obviously yellows could come into a factor, lengthen this race a little bit more, just like it has a little bit here tonight. This is our 3rd caution of the evening. However, this is the final stretch of this race, and now, Jared, does the mindset start to switch after the halfway point, or does it stay consistent until those final laps where you can try to position yourself for a race win?
You know, Kenneth, these guys were aggressive on lap 5. They've been aggressive on lap 10, 15, 20, 25. They're going to continue to be aggressive until, you know, it's a 90-lap race. Lap 92, they're going to do 2 cooldown laps and still be aggressive on those. So I think everyone's going to say the same. I think maybe some of the people in the back kind of, you know, staying calm. You know, maybe someone like Derek Lemke, Calvin Miller, you know, maybe Justin Miller. Maybe they'll try to make their way to the front, put their name in the hat. But I think they'll honestly just get more aggressive here as we get closer to the end.
And guys like Derek Lemke, those guys back in the top 20, haven't really talked about them too much, at least through this race, but at least they'll have a chance and they'll still be in contention. They're obviously still clean on the racetrack, so it's not out of it just yet. We had about 2 drivers stay out. It should be Joey Piccolella in the number 22 along with Calvin Miller in the 48. Those 2 were the ones that should have stayed out, but it seems as though the position will fall back to Piccolella. I'm not sure whether he's going to fall into about 2nd online or whether he's going to join this 3rd row. Matt Rogers is also there as well, so we're trying to find out where everybody will shuffle. And at least for now, the 22 and the 96 should resemble themselves in the 2nd row, but there's a lot of shuffling. Not sure where everybody is placed. Nick Olsen currently sitting on the outside of row 1.
Yeah, Matt Rogers being up in there in 3rd kind of makes you feel like he got away with one there. I mean, he was probably the worst off after that wreck and being involved in it. So to have him be in 3rd place, I'm sure he's happy about that, counting his lucky stars. But yeah, interesting to see where everyone's going to shake up here once we get this race back under green.
So indeed it will be Calvin Miller to the race lead and will lead us back to the green flag. Nick Olsen in the 24, one of the most aggressive drivers all night, will start on the outside. Matt Rogers in the 96 will start in the outside of row number 2. So indeed he did get away with one, getting in that incident, getting the fast repair, and now even though he did not suffer whatsoever, I think the only thing that suffered was just him crashing there, but he'll be back to the top 4. Joey Piccolella, number 22, will follow alongside to the bottom with Kevin Orlando and Keith Smalley. I guess Smalley also got the least amount of damage. It softened the blow indefinitely here for them, because now they will have a shot again to run the race C, but got to be a little more cautious. They've already burned up their fast repair. They do not want to be out of this race. Off turn 4, pace car will make its left to pit road. Could be our final restart of the evening, but we'll just have to find out. Under 30 laps to go from Daytona. The 48 of Calvin Miller and Nick Olsen will lead us back to the green flag, and an early start for Nick Olsen will give him the headway, but it might not be enough. He'll shuffle down to the inside, and everybody will head off back into turn number 1 with Olsen in control.
On these restarts, it's been the same constant. We see the inside line being very organized as they head off into turn number 1. And then on the backstretch, maybe out of 2, the outside line starts to pick up some steam. With Rogers out there in front of it right now, we will see if that's the same case here as they head onto the backstretch of lap 59 of 90.
And now down to the bottom. Here's a switch up top. Piccolella in the 22 Ford Mustang will find his way back up there, and he'll have the shove from the 96, almost 3 wide behind them. Look at the line of Fitzgerald splitting his way to the middle. An easy spot to the bottom, and he's got a big run. It might shuffle again, the 96 out of line, as the 3 cars work up top side by side with the race leader.
And looks like the 22 car of Joey Piccolella will come out the leader as he heads down to the low side and leaves Matt Rogers on the high side to his own devices, as he has the 9 of Bryce Fitzgerald behind him, and then the 6 of Chris Worrell again up into the top 5 area. And man, what an interesting race he's had so far. With a very clean race car, I have to mention as well.
Yeah, very clean race car nonetheless. And look at Matt Rogers trying to find a way to the 9 of Fitzgerald. Remember, Rogers started all the way back in 29th. He'll be looking to second, but here's Olsen, who wants more than that. He'll go for first, side by side with a nose out front. The bump from the 96 will give him the headway to turn 3. He'll have the big run, and he should be able to clear himself maybe almost to the bottom off turn 4, but it might not be enough. 3 cars versus about 6 or 7 to the top.
I will say so far, Kenneth, I don't know about you, but if I had to pick a favorite right now, I feel like it would be Nick Olsen because of how consistent he's been leading this pack so far in this one. He's done an incredible job. See him when the drafts come, when to go high, when to go low, and he's incredible so far tonight.
And I remember watching a lot of the races, stock cars, and especially the Cup cars here at Daytona. I've seen both sides of the table. I've seen long green flag runs and races that have resulted in the ending on pit strategy, whether it's about saving enough fuel or staying in the draft. I've seen that conversation before. There's the 23 of Mike Campbell falling a little bit out of line. I've seen the big chaotic races where there's wrecks possibly every 5 laps, and you can't really go a green flag run without an incident happening on track. And then I'm seeing a race like this. It's chaotic up front, but there's enough yellows to splice the middle where you don't see the fuel strategy happen at all. You just see everyone running full throttle, running 150%, but all still keeping it relatively clean, albeit regardless of maybe some issues around the clock. But other than that, it has been a wild race. And Nick Olsen, I think you say it right there, Jared, hard to bet against him. He's been one of the most dominant cars all night, and he'll have another look to the race lead down the back straightaway.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, the mix between caution and the green flag runs. We haven't seen any cycle of green flag pit stops. I don't believe we will see one tonight, which, those also have their own problems. I mean, everyone's slowing down, everyone trying to organize when they're going to come off, when they're going to pit. So, it's a double-edged sword, I feel like, and we haven't had to deal with that so far tonight, which is probably good for these competitors.
Yeah, probably takes off the mental game that we talked about. I mean, the mental game is happening under green flag, but it gives you a lot more to work with if, let's say, you have a pitch strategy. If you look a little bit further out to the field, you might see the Dale line, the top line, start to make them way and form at about 3 cars. It starts with the 6 that we talked about all night, Chris Worrell. Behind him, the 8 of Michael Anthony, and Marcus Adams, who finds his way back into the conversation. They're trying to make the 3rd line work. You're riding on board, and he gets to the outside of Fitzgerald, and watch for them as they come back to turn 3 and 4. They might have a run.
Yeah, it's super highline right now. Has the numbers if Fitzgerald's unable to get to the back of the 96 car here. But it looks like they'll be able to go in the the 96 unable to get up and block that one. So maybe the high line for the first time tonight will pay off tonight. And the 6 of Chris Worrell will perhaps get back in the lead. Olsen thought about trying to go high to block it, but just ran out of time there with how much momentum they had.
And I was going to ask through this race whether we were going to see a 3rd line, because at that point through the race, we really hadn't seen the 2nd line work too well at that point in order to make a 3rd line work. But already as it just came off, it has just found its way back to destruction, as Worrell will now have to succumb to the outside, and at least try to find a way to pick himself back up as it at least dissipates for the most part. But I was going to ask if that second line wasn't necessarily formed all the way. That third line may not have enough, at least to be confident in it, but the 6 of World gave a little bit of lasting hope. But here might be a change for position up front once again. Another lead change. The 27 of Kevin Orlando Jr. swaps his way in the Ford Mustang, sporting the Panini colors out front.
I feel like you mentioned, you know, the high line, the third line. I feel like the drivers who did try that kind of put that in the back of the memory bank, put that in the back of their minds, realized, okay, yeah, it can work. If we need it very much late in the race, we need to be very aggressive. And I feel like if we see that, maybe 5 to go, 3 to go, it'll be those same guys who just tried it there last lap.
And it might be the conversation. At least that could be what results in. You see the 6 trying to work again to the high side, maybe flirting, maybe trying to take note of drivers who could go up with him. And you saw the 3 drivers who made that outside line work. They can definitely try it again. It's not out of the cards that at least they can try again, especially since there's still a lot of this race left to go. You can still try and make that third line work, and then keep that in your mind. Let's say, like you said, if it dissipates, have it in your mind, and you could try it again if you have the opportunity. But right now, that opportunity lays to the middle groove, as the 3 drivers who were working that top groove, they have found their way back together. But the 53 of Robert Roeder currently sitting in the race C, but it might change once again.
We're seeing some players up here who have not been involved all race so far. I mean, we haven't said Michael Anthony's name much, Robert Roeder's name much, and you know, right there, they're leading their respective lines and go 1-2 so far. And this one is also makes a great save off of 4. And then right behind them, there he is again. Chris Worrell can't get his name out of our mouths so far in this one tonight as he crosses the line second, third maybe in that one. Wow, Anthony almost got back there. Don't know if it was off the bumper of Worrell or he was just coming down to block the run, but wow, that was a close one in front of the field.
Still side by side for the race seat, almost even more as the 31 of Marcus Adams had a tap to the outside wall, but they stay connected, they stay together. Matt Rogers actually almost spun off the exit of turn 2, and I was just about to mention Derek Lemke, who we hadn't talked about all night, who's just sitting outside of the top 10. He was almost in the middle of all that action as the 31 will now fall all the way back to almost the tail end of the lead lap, and there's more contact behind them and a big flip behind. Caution flag waves.
You mentioned the 31 car, you know, Marcus Adams. What a roller coaster he's had so far. You know, we mentioned he was the first car to go a lap down, then he made it up to right around the lead, got involved with that wreck with Matt Rogers, and now again in the wall. I feel like this flip, you know, might be a butterfly effect from him getting in the wall in that corner.
That was the 41 of Roberto Ramirez and his ally Toyota Camry. He went soaring off 4 wheels over the ground, almost to the outside fence, as it seemed as though we had everything solved with the gaggle up front. But there was another situation right behind. There was Matt Rogers who got loose off turn 2. We had talked about that. But then there was a push what looked to be the 47 who was trying to split the middle here, in the space might not have been there entirely, as maybe there's contact right about here between himself and the 38. Sends it down into the 41. Watch this flyover by the 41 over and up into the outside wall. And there's more wrecking behind the 37 car involved. I see another one there involved and another semi-large wreck as the 41 will get his faster pair. Here's another look as the contact started up with the 38 and the 47.
Yeah, just, you know, the 41 there, Roberto Ramirez, wrong place, wrong time. Looks like he was going to get through it, then just got clipped in the quarter panel, goes up and over into the fence there. And Roberto Ramirez, of course, famous designer, you know, get some designs at Stewart Haas Racing. I believe he designed Eric Almirola and Cole Custer's car for this upcoming NASCAR season. So shout out to him and his talents. But yeah, unfortunate time there for him. And hopefully he has a fast repair to get that car back going again.
And indeed he does. So he's got a fresh race car. Here's a little further look back in the field. One of the drivers, that is the 84 machine, who got into it as well a little bit further behind the carnage. And he was around. That was Ferris Shaw in 22nd. He's currently sitting 22nd right now as he's trying to find some way down to pit road. And now the lead, or the lap leaders, will be out of pit road. Nick Olson will return back to the race lead with Robert Roeder behind and Kevin Orlando rounding out your top 3. But one thing here to note, the driver who just went around the pace car, J.R. Houston, one of the more aggressive drivers in the opening segment of this race, he's now back on the lead lap. So you should watch for him now, as we should get back to the green flag shortly.
Yeah, Houston loved that caution. You know, the first chunk of this race, he was up there in the mix. We were saying his name just as much. We were Nick Olson, you know, the 6 car as well. We were saying all their names in unison almost. So J.R. Houston being on the lead lap, that'll be big. And I feel like we will see him make his way up through the field and maybe have a stake of claim in who ends up winning this race.
So J.R. Houston will find his way down to pit road. He'll get his service, and Olson should be your race leader with the 53 right behind. Another caution at lap number 69 of 90. Just under 30 laps ago, now coming at 20 laps ago. You're watching the season opener for the Four Corners Racing League for the Daytona International Speedway. We'll have more coverage next on STN Racing.
Of the best sim racers. $200,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? Interlagos, Barcelona, Imola, Silverstone, Road Atlanta, Montreal, Spa, Nürburgring, Le Mans, Monza. This is racing for immortality. This is esports personified. This is the Porsche Tag Heuer Esports Super Cup.
Back live for the Four Corners Racing League season opener from the Daytona International Speedway. Currently 70 laps complete and about 20 laps to go. As you look at our field summary, after 69 of 90 laps, we've had 27 lead changes and no sign of stopping. We've had 4 yellows, with our most recent involving the 41 of Roberto Ramirez, and we've been under caution, or caution laps rather, for about 9 laps, and iRacing doing a good job of minimizing the laps under pacing, so we could have all the action as we're about to head back under green with Nick Olson and Robert Roeder, your first 2, as the pace car will make its left back down to pit lane, and Olson will again lead the charge back to the tri-oval. Lights away, and we are back underway green from Daytona.
You know, and it's funny, we're going back green 20 laps ago. The sun is set now, so the lights on the track are out. And we'll see if that changes how these drivers race. If there's a full moon tonight, I don't know, maybe watch out. Maybe get more aggressive even here with 20 laps to go.
And the cooler track will result in a lot more grip as you look at the track weather just briefly as Olson leads them off turn 2. 76 degrees with a track temp of 87, and that's sure to go down as the night progresses. But it is tight up top and down to the bottom. This is the first time, Jared, that we're really seeing the top side be competitive with the bottom just as much, and about the same amount of cars, the 53 and the 24 off turn 4, still side by side.
You know, if you look back a little bit on this inside line, I believe it's the 5th car in line, Tracy Passons. That thing looks like a modified car, like you mentioned earlier. Tyler Reddick's car last night, that's the 15 car right now, and they're up there competing in this one still. So just to show, I mean, if you're in the line, if you're in the draft, you still have a chance no matter what.
And if you look back, it goes all the way to the 77 and 16th of William Rucker, the driver who's kind of splitting that outside end of the bottom, and one of the last cars in this train before you get to the 42 of Chris McLean, who we talked about briefly in this event. The driver is trying to swerve out for the most part. The 53 with a shove. Here's Fitzgerald trying that 3rd line, but he's all by himself, no help.
Yeah, for sure. The 3rd line, you know, we've seen it tried a few times tonight. It worked that one time right before the caution, but I just don't think right now they have the numbers, and I don't think anyone else wants to have that kind of urgency, but there's still, you know, not a lot of time left, but a fair amount of time before we get to the end of this one.
And you talk about a fair amount of time here, Jarrett. Do you try to make the move now, or do you try to wait? Or at least how long do you wait to try and make a move to the race seat? Because just as easy as you can get it is just as easy as you can lose it. We've seen it so many times. I mean, 27 lead changes can account for that, as you see the 3rd line still now developing with Fitzgerald in the 53 trying to guard in, and Calvin Miller in the 48 will try to split the middle. How long do you wait until you try to make that move for the race seat and try to get there to the checkered flag?
I mean, you said it right there, you know, just as short amount of time as it takes to get it, it can be taken away from you. So I feel like if you're going to make a move where it's super risky, you know, 3 wide, you know, have to cut back and forth, high side, bottom side, I feel like you want to wait to do that to the end. I mean, because then, you know, less of a chance it gets taken away from you. But here, with 17 laps to go, I feel like to make that bold of a move to where you're going to try to go for the lead no matter what happens, caution to the wind, you know, I feel like they're going to wait for that one.
Well, we've had drivers that have not waited whatsoever to either try to make moves, swerve around the racetrack, or try to take over the race lead, as we might have another lead change on our hands. This time, Calvin Miller, a shove by the 6 of World, will push him ahead of Nick Olsen. So another lead change to bring us in with 17 laps to go, on the cusp of reaching 15 laps to go in this season opener for the Four Corners Racing League from Daytona. And it is imperative to just how long you can wait, because also the help, we haven't talked about that. I think for a while in this race, we talked about playing the trust game, getting with drivers together, but we haven't really talked about having drivers push you there to the win. Do you have enough confidence in the driver behind you? Do you have enough confidence in the people around you to get a good enough push to get to the front and be there up to the race lead? We've seen a handful of combinations now, but some cases it really hasn't worked, as one driver actually set up to the outside wall there, but we stay green for the moment, and Nick Olsen currently back looking for the race lead.
Yeah, I feel like it'll just come down to, you know, your dancing partners, who's ever left at the dance at the end of the night, right? So I feel like, you know, Olsen, World, they've worked well together all night. You know, right now we see Orlando and Roto working together, but if they're not by each other, they're not going to, you know, hang back, try to pick one of the other ones up. If someone's in front of them, they're going to get pushed or passed, rather. And, yeah, I feel like that'll just come down to that. You know, who's near you, who's in front of you, who's next to you, and how can they help you win this race?
And what I've noticed here, Jared, is really that the drivers, at least for the most part, at least from what we've seen up front, it's been a lot less selective than I probably would have expected. I probably would have seen maybe Olsen, maybe drivers like Calvin Miller, maybe drivers a little bit further back. I probably would expect them to be a lot more selective in who they choose. I think there's only been one situation where it was kind of a loose moment where one driver almost got into a wreck, and it was a Toyota Camry. I believe it was Matt Rogers, and then the driver behind him, the 9 of Fitzgerald, had nothing to do with it and wanted to go straight to the outside, did not want to work with him. That's been only the case that I've seen drivers choose which one, and at least know that there's a driver they don't want to work with. For the most part, everyone's been open-minded. Most of the drivers either sticking together or grouping with new guys as World goes back to the race lead.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And that was at a point of the race where, you know, they kind of had that option. So we're like, all right, I don't want to really work with this guy. I want to find something else, maybe take my time a little bit. But, you know, as we get more to the end of this race, those options run out and that time runs out. So maybe we'll see that exact same situation could take place, but the driver has no option but to go with that guy.
And right now, the only option for the 6 is to have the 24 of Nick Olsen alongside, but maybe not anymore. First time we're seeing the inside lane really dip in intensity, and it's now all about the top. Here's the driver we haven't talked about since a caution when he went straight into the inside wall. Gavin Hibbs in the 95. He's back into the conversation, trying to push the 8 car to the race lead again.
Yeah, Gavin Hibbs doing a great job to recover from that accident, as we see the high side kind of lose some numbers, but not lose that much momentum, as they're still right there holding with Nick Olsen, as Michael Anthony is on the high side off too.
And they're trying to make a move work almost 3 wide, as the 42 of McLean has made a charge to the middle, at least getting the draft to 27, making something up top, maybe getting a little bit of momentum. However, not enough help to push him anywhere close to the top 5, and all of them within about a second or so. You have to step all the way back to, I'd say, all the way to 17th to find a driver within 1 second. So 16 drivers within the span of 60 seconds of another, and they're all wrapped in together. Everyone back to the high side again, as the 8 still door to door with the race leader.
These cars are under a blanket, and that is one of the risks that comes with pushing, making these late blocks is, you know, if you get collecting something, it could very well collect, you know, 10, 12, 15 other drivers. So they're mindful of that, but they're also mindful that whoever wins this race will be in the chase and in the playoffs once this regular season wraps up.
And you also don't want to be involved in an incident within the final lap, because you can be so close to glory and have it all slip away from your fingers right at the very end. It is a big shuffle up top, as here's Worrell again for the race lead. Aggressive early, but aggressive all race long. They've been 11 laps to go from Daytona.
What a great shot there by Worrell. You know, he was kind of worried that Olsen might try to come up and block, but did a great job to keep his foot in it, keep his confidence in his ability and in the nose of his race car, not to sag up the field and kind of cost himself a shot at this win, which he frankly would deserve just as much as Nick Olsen, I believe.
And now again, 2 Chevrolet Camaros leading this entire field. Big shove by the 53 of Rotor, gonna give advantage to the 8, almost gonna clear himself, but nobody's shuffling themselves out of line. Olsen will return the favor back down to the bottom, and the 6 of Worrell will again have the advantage. Look who's up into this, I'd say, top 15 all within this section. Remember, Matt Rogers in the 96, talked about him getting into an incident, started 4th on one of the recent restarts. He's also got a shot. The 31 of Marcus Adams, we talked about him more recently with his moves to the top side. He's also in the middle 3 wide right now. The 17 of Aaron Adcock, hadn't mentioned him since the first caution of the evening. So now he's also in 13th with a shot at a chance to get into the top 10 or to the race lead if all hell breaks loose. A big shove, loose the 8 car goes, but again, still side by side as Worrell will lead.
There's so much talent required, and you know, when you receive a push, that's the momentum's way faster behind you than you have going already. It's so much talent is required to hold on to that race car and keep it go straight, you know, keep it going, keep it out of the wall. And that was a beautiful display right there by the 8 car.
And now he'll stay up, but there is a couple of drivers that might fall to the under the lead lap, at least that are near or at least close to these leaders, and that starts with the 38 of Richard Lakawa, who's right in the midst of the field, and we can see what he does. I think this might be the best opportunity if they end up catching him. We'll see if he ends up going to the apron or if everyone will have to try and split him, and if they have to go around them on the track, that will be quite possibly one of the more dangerous situations we see all night long. New race leader again, Michael Anthony in the 8. First time he's cleared everyone to the race lead, and he'll lead them back off of turn 4. Now the outside will shuffle. Here comes the 6 again.
Just when Michael Anthony, I bet, thought he was kind of going to take a breath being on that inside line, Worrell does the discount double check and crosses back over to the high side and gets in front of Robert Rotor. And I believe he led that last lap, but if not, he'll be able to come down and clear the 8. Almost, and he does it there. Caution to the wind there as he clears them in the middle of turn number 2 heading onto the backstretch.
And they'll head to the backstretch. There's the lap car, the 38. He'll stay all the way to the high side. Everyone should be clear. No contact, no conflict with the driver, who will stay at least 1 lap down for the time being, and everyone swerving across the racetrack. You gotta be curious here, Jerry, that at least with the amount of swerving we've seen here tonight, nobody's chopped each other's nose, and as soon as I say that, the 6 of Worrell gets collected. Big crash, Olsen involved, the 31 of Adams involved. It's the big one at Daytona as the leader got turned across his nose in a turn 3 and 4, and now Worrell sits on the track with heavy damage. And a lot of the contenders we've been talking about all night might be in trouble with 7 laps to go.
You know, we don't have a face cam on Worrell, obviously, but I bet his hands are in his head is in his hands after that one. You know, it's just an unfortunate circumstance. On the inside there, got caught, and, you know, that's almost the field. I believe only 5 cars got through that one cleanly up the front. The 53, 27, 22, 99, and 95 got away from that one clean.
We'll try to take a look again, and as soon as I mentioned drivers chopping off each other's noses, the 6 of Worrell gets turned in front of the field, and you can see the calamity. 2 drivers up into the air, 42 of McLean, 31 of Adams. Nick Olsen went head on into the outside barrier as there were more drivers involved. The 23 of Mike Campbell.
You know, I mentioned the last time they came down pit road, you know, I said Nick Olsen's car is so clean, and hopefully he has that fast repair in his back pocket like I mentioned he would have, and perhaps he can use it and try to see if there's any time left for him to get back up to the front.
Yeah, and that's also another big part of this one here, Jared, is you said holding on to that fast repair would be key. Remember, talked about some drivers that were in this wreck that had used their fast repair at least once, including the 96 of Matt Rogers, who has the nose completely ripped off his Toyota Camry. There's another look at the wall camera. The 48 also involved, the 83 in it, and the 9. There's the 9 of Fitzgerald, who was able to get by, luckily with no damage. But the good news for at least most of these guys is that they will have that fast repair to their advantage. So at least for guys like Nick Olsen, for drivers like Anthony Adams in the number 8 machine, or Michael Anthony rather in the number 8 machine, they will be okay on that front, and they will have that fast repair as Nick Olsen gets a fresh race car A couple of the other ones getting first race cars, but now this puts Robert Roeder into the front of the field with less than 7 laps to go. Jared, what do you do here if you're any one of these drivers?
You know, as much as I want to, say close your eyes and just hope, obviously, that's not what they can do. Robert Roeder, Orlando, Piccarello, I feel like they're just counting their lucky stars they weren't involved in that one, because it was hard. It was easier to be involved than not to be involved. So I feel like they're counting their stars on that one. We might have, 3 laps to go when we go green again. So I feel like they're just going to hold on. I feel like they know that they're fortunate to be up front here, but also at the same time, there's a win on the line here, and they know that. And they can go get after it and kind of just hope for the best and make aggressive moves, but try to keep race cars and maybe preserve a good finish, here tonight.
And a good finish, even if you're not locked into the playoffs, even if you don't get a win, surely could set you in the right direction, especially moving forward. And that will probably be the biggest note of concern for drivers that are either running for the win, which you can try to throw that away. There's a trade-off here as well, Jared, that within these final laps or so, let's say if you're sitting third on back, maybe even in top 5, top 15, you can get a good amount of points to your advantage if you stay where you are, or at least where you're racing. If you finish to the checkered flag in that scenario, you'll probably be good in terms of running top 10 in points, and then you can try to focus on either building yourself up to the rest of the season or grabbing a win in any of the other races, which probably will be a relief if you get it here tonight. And that's where the trade-off begins, because it comes to a conversation about what are you willing to do, and is it worth it at the end? You can try to make that risk, but if it doesn't work, you could easily set yourself for failure. You could put yourself in a big hole coming out of Daytona for the rest of the season. So is it worth it to go to the end? Is it worth it to make those aggressive moves? We've seen drivers that have been willing to make it, but it's still a big question that relies, I think, within every driver's minds. As we got the 1 to green signal, we should be going back here green soon.
Yeah, Kat, to be honest with you, I'm not the one to make that judgment call. There's a reason my I rating is where it is. If I can see the leader, I'm going for it. And I feel like a lot of these drivers are going to feel the same thing tonight. I mean, there's 5 laps left. There's been a lot of big wrecks, a lot of dangerous moments, a lot of aggressive moves. I feel like these drivers are going to be thankful that they have a clean race car so far, but at the end of the day, they're going to go for it. And it should provide for some very interesting storylines here as we are 1 to go here.
We'll see who makes those aggressive moves. We'll see who gets there at the end. Your top 10 field rundown will be Robert Roeder leading us back to the green flag. Kevin Orlando Jr. to the top of row number 1. Joey Piccarello will be 3rd with James Lowe in 4th. Gavin Hibbs 5th. 6th to Calvin Allison. Bryson Fitzgerald in 6th. Derek Lemke to 7th. Casey Heschel back to 9th. Or actually 8th to Alexander Kronke. 9th to Herschel. And 10th will belong to the 41 of Roberto Ramirez. We'll see what happens within the final 4 laps. Pace car to the safety of pit road. The 53 and the 27 back under green at what might be the final restart of this race.
Robert Roeder, a little bit of damage on his right front, but I don't think that's going to bother him too much here, as he will get the push from behind there from Joey Piccarello as they head into turn number 1 in the 95 car of Gavin Hibbs. Put some tires under there below the yellow line, but nothing bad came of it so far.
And a big group of organization, no signs of separation in any portion of this field. The 27 getting that run, and we're going to see more drivers find their way to cut through the field. One of the more aggressive drivers, Bryson Fitzgerald, he's sitting in 7th. What can he do, and what can everybody behind them do? Jared Houston is currently sitting in 14. Drivers we haven't talked about, at least for a while, are now finding themselves back into this dogfight, door to door. 2 Mustangs for the race lead. Kevin Orlando Jr. will have the nose out front.
Kevin Orlando will lead this one. 3 laps to go here at the Daytona International Speedway, and right now it's anybody's race in this top 10-15. We see a little bit further back, believe it or not, the 6th car of Chris Worrell trying to make that 3rd line work, and we'll see if anyone goes with him as he brushes the wall a little bit.
Nobody will go with him, only the 31 of Adams to help alongside. They'll be hopeless for now, but it is all the story between the top 15. Look at the big shove. A 3rd line now. Derek Lemke with help from Fitzgerald. They're going to try to make a tandem work as they head back to turn 3.
That's a name we haven't mentioned much tonight. Derek Lemke has a clean race car, kept the Clark Keenan. Right now, he does have a shot here to make this 3rd line work and try to bring it home in the lead, and we will be 2 to go this time as we cross the stripe.
2 laps to go from the virtual world center of racing. Nobody able to block Derek Lemke up top. Here comes the 49 of Casey Heschel to follow alongside. They're 3 wide for the lead and for second, even further behind, but not enough running through 1 and 2. A couple of drivers scratching that inside wall as the 27 and the 53 off turn 2. Still side by side. Here's Calvin Allison to the top as well.
The high side was just about to die out, but Calvin Allison gets up there, puts his name in the list, and now Calvin Allison is the leader of that high line as they head off into turn number 3.
Back to turn 3, what could be the penultimate time. Third line still trying to find themselves within a rhythm, but only 3 cars can do so much. Big crash off of turn number 4 as they're heading back to the start-finish line. Will the caution come out as they reach the white flag? I don't believe there will be, and we've gotten the white flag with Robert Roeder out front, and everybody has swapped positions. I'm surprised there's no yellow flag, and now it's just down to 2 drivers on the racetrack.
Right now, Roeder is a sitting duck. If Picoella can get this momentum on the backstretch here, and it looks like he's closing that gap a little bit.
We'll see what he can do back into turn 3. We were expecting a lot more cars in this fight, but we'll just have to see Alexander Kronke and Calvin Allison in another tandem going to turn 3 and 4, but there might not be enough time. Could be the final move for Piccolella to make a move here. He is down to the inside for the final time, but it is not enough. Robert Roeder will win the season opener in the Four Corners Racing League from Daytona in a chaotic finish, going to the end after a big crash, coming to the white flag. And Robert Roeder, who put himself in position near the end of the race, walks away with a checkered flag.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, that's all you can really say. Coming to the white flag, there was that massive wreck, and I feel like Piccarella made a misstep there, getting behind Roeder going into 3 and not trying to make the move when he had the momentum from the slingshot. But, you know, Roeder, of course, not going to have any complaints. I feel like Piccarella won't have many either. You know, second's a very good result here, but Roeder gets it done, you know, goes to victory lane and locks himself into the chase.
Well, he will have no worries about the rest of this season. Joey Piccolella being involved in a big crash in the opening segment of the race. He will come back to finish second. Alexander Kronke will round out the top 3. Calvin Allison, Mike Campbell, 2 of the notable drivers throughout this race, rounding out this top 5. There's the 53 as some of the other drivers are finding their way back to pit road to end this one. But it's all eyes on the 53, the Ford Mustang, and the Plex machine of Robert Roeder, celebrating down the front straightaway, right in front of the virtual fans and right up to the outside wall here at Daytona, and put himself in the right place to take away the checkered flag. We'll take a look at your full field rundown and see where every driver finished at the end of 90 laps for the season opener of the Four Corners Racing League. Robert Roeder, your winner here tonight in his Ford Mustang, right to the line with Joey Piccolella, the only 2 drivers to find themselves first to the start finish line. Alexander Kronke in the 57 will rebound after a decent race, will come home within the top 3. Calvin Allison, aggressive late in that running, will survive at the end to finish in 4th. Mike Campbell will round out the drivers within the top 5. Raymond Lee is a driver we didn't talk about all night long in his 33 car. He'll finish 6th. Kevin Orlando Jr., a promising run side by side for the lead. He'll result tonight in 7th place. Chris Worrell, arguably the most aggressive car tonight, will round out the top 8 with Patrick Green in the 87 in 9th and Justin Miller rounding out your top 10.
Yeah, William Rucker down in 11th place. J.R. Houston, a name that we talked about a lot at the start of the race, had some problems, made his way back up to 12th place. Can't be too upset with that result. Travis Rucker, 13th. Richard Lakawa, 14th, a name we didn't mention all night. James Cotto, 15th. Michael Anthony, 16th. Bryson Fitzgerald, 17th. Derek Lemke, the man trying to lead that charge in the 3rd lane on those last couple of laps, comes home 18th. Ferris Shaw, 19th. And Keith Smalley rounds out the top 20.
And back to 21st on back, Aaron Adcock. Rough race for him. Will cross the line 21st. Marcus Adams in the 31. Up and down roller coaster evening, but it will result at a low for him. 22nd at the line. Tracy Passon's early trouble will result for 23rd. Nick Olson will look to be one of the most dominant cars all night long. Will be 23rd, with Gavin Hibbs will be 24th. Calvin Miller will round out 25th with Matt Rogers. A couple of incidents to set him back to 26. 27 will belong to Casey Heschel. 28th will belong to James Lowe. 29th will belong to Roberto Ramirez in the 41. And rounding out your top 30, Tracy Passon's a reminder. Unfortunately, she will be back over into the top 30.
Chris McClain waiting home 31st. Holt Johnson 32nd. Jesse Cottrell in 33rd. Chris Webb 34th. Ray Rogers, I believe he lagged out. See 30 laps there in 35th. And Kyle Smalley, I believe, rounds out the field in 36th.
So that'll be your full 36 car field. We'll take another look at just how that finish unraveled as they were trying to make their way back to the checkered flag. And we talked about there, no yellow as they were coming off turn 4 with the 53 out front. We'll take another look. This was a large wreck as there were 3 lines full with Calvin Allison. There was a shove. I believe the 22 of Piccolella wanted to trade places to the high side, but there was not enough space. And the 27 of Orlando Jr. had that space, so they made contact, sending a lot of drivers up to the outside wall. You can see some of the drivers that were left to survive, including Mike Campbell. They stayed where they were as more drivers were collected behind. And you could see the carnage as it all starts with the 2 Ford Mustangs.
Yeah, I feel like Piccolello either got loose off of forwards, just thought he had room to come up and block the 27, put the 27, into the wall on the right, tried to save it, and unfortunately got into the 95, but then that was able to straighten him out and set him up for a run at the eventual winner of the event, Robert Roeder.
You see there, more contact. There's James Lowe in the 99 getting into the 3 machine. Sends him into the 84. There's Tracy Passons. And this was all 2 laps to go, but there was no yellow on the track. And I was expecting it to be yellow. I was expecting everything to come back to green-white checkered territory, but it seems as though it did not. And then they were able to get to the white flag in time, and Roeder practically all by himself. Look at the cut down right there. I believe that was a 49 of Heschel, cut right in front of the 23, just barely getting away with it. And a big wreck to finalize what was a rarely clean 90-lap event. And we'll take a look as the 95 of Hibbs, another meeting right in the same place to the inside wall.
Yeah, in a situation like this, it really just is chaos down there. You're trying to get through, trying to find a hole, but even if you get through, find a hole, find a way through it, you could get tagged in the quarter penalty. So that happened a few times, but just unfortunate, really. And this will be a good onboard here. I believe this is J.R. Houston's ride.
It is Jared Houston, got tagged to 57, and right there just collected in it. And what would have been a comeback run for the driver of the 20 who was aggressive up front early in this race did not get enough to the end, and he was able to just scramble. I mean, by yourself at Daytona is definitely not the situation you want to be in. It feels so slow and so tedious to be all by yourself. But as now the winner of this race, Robert Roeder, will step into victory lane. We'll talk and we'll chat with the driver of that 53, locking himself into the playoffs, and we'll bring him in to the broadcast if we can get him up here as well. We'll try to find our way with him, but I guess for now we'll bring it back up here, Jared, and we'll get our final thoughts about this. What a race, aggressive all night long. Could you have expected anything from that at all?
Oh, I had a blast. I don't know about you, but that was such a fun race to watch. The skill to be able to race that aggressive for 90 laps without having too many problems. Of course, we had 3-4 cautions there, but with how aggressive they were, front of the pack, high side, low side, really just incredible to watch. And it was great. It was a great display.
Well, now we've got enough to talk with our race winner, Robert Roeder, in the number 53, the driver of the Ford Mustang, taking the checkered flag in victory lane. And Robert, I'd say it was probably one of the more chaotic finishes. And I think it's probably safe to say chaos was the name of the game here tonight. So many changes for position, so many drives to the end there. Walk us through your perspective as that was happening in your rearview mirror.
Well, before I get into anything else, I just want to say that I got a really good push from my buddy there, Joey Piccolella. And that's the only reason why we were able to be out in front of that wreck. And I know him and his fiance are going through some rough stuff right now, and we're thinking about them. So I just want to give them a shout out. As far as the last restart there, and Kevin Orlando's on the team. He's on the outside line, and we just figured as long as we could keep side by side there would be all right. And then I think Joey thought he was clear, tried to come up and saw the big wreck behind me. And I'm just praying that we don't get the yellow before I take the white, because there's nobody else behind me. Unfortunately, it worked out that way.
It definitely did work out that way. And for you, you started all the way back in the 19th spot and had to work your way through the field. Give us a thorough journey of what that was like, because I know that you were kind of hanging around through the field in the midsection of this race, but how were you able to position yourself right there at the end to give your shot at the win and, of course, inevitably the race win here tonight?
Well, it was kind of my plan from the beginning, starting mid-pack there, 19th. Knew it was going to be, I mean, it's Daytona. It's a fresh set of guys out here running their first race together. I knew we'd have some cautions I didn't want to be caught up in. So first thing I did, lap 1, pull out, go back to last and hang out back there for a little while and avoid a couple of those wrecks. And then, eventually decided to make the move to the front once the pack got broken up a little bit. That worked out pretty well for us. And then stuff started to get crazy again. So went ahead and fell back again, made our way back to the front. And fortunately, we were able to hold it that time. Some good pit strategy helped get us there and keep us there.
Certainly kept you there, and it brought you over to victory lane here tonight. I think one of the final questions to bring in is just how good does this feel now that you've got the win and now you're locked into the chase at the end of the season to run for a title? Where does that momentum switch, or where does the mindset switch now that you've got the relief, you've got that win off your back, and now you're able to focus for the championship coming to the rest of the season?
Well, it's fantastic. It's a long season, and I'm pretty good on these ovals. I'm not the greatest on the road courses, so we'll be putting some practice time in on the simulator to try to get ready for those. But I no longer have to worry about those racetracks that are questionable on the schedule anymore. We can go into the dirt race at Bristol, and if we get junked and finish last, and it doesn't hurt us too bad. So it's really a big weight off the shoulders for the rest of the season, and it's also just an honor to win the inaugural Daytona 500 here with this league. A bunch of good guys in here.
Well, you walk away with a checkered flag and a spot locked in for you into these playoffs. Obviously, our congratulations go to you for taking the checkered flag here tonight. And of course, we wish you the best of luck now moving through the rest of this season. But for now, we'll let you celebrate for the World Center of Racing.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Great broadcast.
That was Robert Roeder, your winner here tonight from the Daytona International Speedway. We'll try to kick back to second, where we'll find the 22 of Joey Piccolella. Not sure whether we're able to bring him into the booth just yet. We'll get a word of whether we can, or at least for now. But we do have third place Alexander Kronke into the waiting room, so we'll bring him up in the booth where he is trackside with Jarrett Maki.
Waiting for him here.
We'll try to get him into the booth, see if he is able to join. For now, Piccolella certainly, I believe, in one of the voice chats, but not sure we can grab him into the booth just yet. So we'll try to see whether we can either get Kronke or Piccolella into the mix and at least get their words on what was probably the wildest finish that we've seen, or one of the wildest that I've seen personally, Jared, at Daytona. Big wreck to the end, no yellow, and practically 2 cars running to the finish.
Oh, yeah, no, for sure. I mean, like I said, that's the product of this racing. We see it again here on the broadcast. I mean, just one of those things. I mean, one car gets going, and like you said, it's such a narrow racetrack. This isn't that Talladega, this is Daytona, and going to the inside even has its risk. You could clip the grass, get clipped coming back up from somebody else. But yeah, a crazy finish. But I think it's the perfect end to a crazy race if you think about it. I mean, the entire race, we were talking about aggressiveness. We were talking about close racing, battles back and forth. So, I feel like we knew a type of finish like this was going to happen. I didn't think we'd see a single file shootout to the finish, but yeah, I feel like that was a good one.
Definitely a good one nonetheless, but it was a lot of fun going into the end of that race, and at least we might have a word from the officials. I'm not sure whether we can try to get that as well throughout the finish of the race, but as we're told, Kronke is shown P2 and Calvin Allison will be shown P3 at the line.
Yeah, it looks like the 22 car there of Piccolella might be flagged for his hand in that accident there at the end. And it looks like, look at the video. That's kind of, I feel like that's a good call. But yeah, I think Kronke has been moved up to the second place in this one.
So we'll have another shuffle for position. Here is Alexander Cronke. Now your second place finisher, was the third after the officials called it, but will be second at the line scored here from Daytona. And Jared, I'll let you take this away on an interview.
Hi, Cronke. How you doing tonight?
Good. How you guys doing? Did you enjoy that show?
Yeah, well, we're trying to find your perspective on it. So, I'll walk us through that. It was a crazy race. Tons of lead changes, tons of battles. All momentum going up top, momentum going down the bottom. Kind of just walk us through what you saw there at the end of that one.
Yeah, the end of that race was pretty wild. I was lucky enough to get back on the lead lap and kind of get back up in the top 10 there to restart with, I think, about 5 or 6 to go, and just kind of chose the right momentum at the right time and ended up going high at one point and then ducked it low, took it 3 wide, and kind of squeezed through the middle and made up pretty good ground. And then coming off turn 4 there, just saw smoke and everybody started wrecking and kind of got turned a little sideways and got squirrely, but was able to keep her straight enough to come home P3, and then they're finding out actually P2, so I'll take it.
Kind of walk us through, the mindset of a driver like this in a situation like this. The racing's going to be close. There's such a high possibility for these massive pile-ups and stack-ups. What goes through your mind when you're racing that close with some of these people?
Especially late in the race there, you kind of just have to go tunnel vision, and especially when you're 3 wide like that, just focus ahead, kind of just use your peripheral vision and just go for it there, at least with 5 to go. I was kind of trying to play it safe the whole race up and before that, trying to stay out of trouble. You had to use my quick repair earlier, but late in the race there, you just kind of got to go for it, choose what line you're in, and choose the momentum hopefully correctly. And it'll hopefully, once the smoke clears, you're in front of the smoke and not taken out in it.
Now, in a race like this, do you have the freedom to pick, I'd love to run on the high side, I'm going to stay up there most of the race, or low side? Or is it kind of case by case and you have to kind of work and see who's going to be high, who's going to be low, and where the momentum's going to be at?
Yeah, case by case. I definitely have a couple of guys out there that I've worked with a lot and raced with a lot here on iRacing. So you kind of got to trust those guys and go with them if you can. And just when there's 5 to go, though, you just got to kind of take whatever momentum you can. And if you can jump up to the top or the bottom or wherever what line's moving and hopefully just get your way to the front. But it is Daytona's wild. When you have those big wrecks, you can really kind of shuffle some stuff up. So just to make it through that last wreck was really happy to start the season off with a solid P2.
Awesome. And anyone you want to thank?
Yeah, I got to thank Strictly Stock Motorsports for being good teammates there in that race. I had a couple guys helping me out there. And yeah, thank you guys for putting on this show. Thank you, JR Houston, for putting on the league. This is a awesome league. Look forward to running it as much as I can this coming year. And yeah, thank you guys.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
That is Alexander Cronke, your scored second place finisher. And we'll try to get the other end of the story here with the number 22 of Joey Piccolello as we work trackside. And Joey, it was, I'd say, probably a wild one for you near the end there, just because you found yourself right in the middle of the hornet's nest. I mean, you had that shot to make it to the front. There was a lot of shuffling already through this field. I know you had made a couple moves to the outside. Just give us your perspective of what that final 2 laps were supposed to be in your anticipations when you guys are going to the green flag, and what happened after.
Just trying to push my teammates, man. I was trying to stay with them, and when I got the run, I thought I had that guy cleared. It wasn't an intentional move. I know it was a bonehead move, but didn't mean to make it, and just going for the win there, man. That's all it was.
And certainly, obviously, trying to make that late race move, and a lot of drivers, had been close to hitting on each other's noses, and just the close, tight margin racing in Daytona. How big is that here? Because I know that you as a driver, I think us as commentators, we don't really have that vantage point to know what it is to drive behind the wheel of a race car, especially this close, going so fast, and with the tensions that run near the end of the race. How difficult is that for you, at least, or how is that as a challenge for you to master or to try and get over as you were pushing the 53 and then making that final move off turn 4?
Oh, it's a huge challenge, man. When you're sucked up like that and you're worried about temperatures of the car and overheating and trying not to wreck your teammates, trying not to wreck the field. And I already had used my fast repair early on in that race, so I was trying to be very cautious with the car. And then I thought I had that guy clear, like I said, and it just wasn't there, and it caused a big one. And I apologize to everybody out there. And like I said, thanks to J.R. Houston for putting on this league, and had a great time. And just wish it was a different ending there. I wish I would have got that second place.
Well, hopefully you'll be able to find your way back and try to get a redemption, if you will, or at least going through the rest of this season. Joey, before we let you go, is there anyone you just like to thank, any team sponsors or anyone else that makes it happen for you each and every week on the sim?
Not just Shell Pennzoil 22, man. It was fast today, and I'd like to see if I can get back up there and try to get in a win here. Rob, congratulations on that win, brother. Good luck, man.
We'll hope to see you up there soon. Joey, thank you for the time. And of course, we wish you the best of luck moving forward to the rest of this season. But for now, we'll let you gather your thoughts and move forward as we head to the rest of this 2021 Four Corners Racing League season. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. And you guys do an awesome job putting on this broadcast. Thanks again.
That was Joey Piccolella, the driver of the 22, making it to the end. And we'll bring it back here for our final thoughts. I'd say again, because we had a little bit of struggle getting through the interviews in the first place. But Jared, I'll bring it back to us up here atop the World Center Racing. And chaos, I think, reigned overall. Aggressiveness reigned overall, even in the first segment of the race. What would this tell us about the rest of the story that will unfold throughout the rest of this season in 2021?
Well, I think that was the quintessential Daytona race. I mean, everything you look for going to Daytona, going to a super speedway in general, we saw here tonight. We saw aggressiveness. We saw, late blocks. We saw early blocks. We saw bump drafting. We saw wrecks. Everything. If you had a bingo card for what you expected to see at Daytona tonight, we saw it all. We at least got 2 bingos across the board. So, great race. And I don't know about you, but I had a blast watching it up here in the booth.
It was definitely a lot of fun here on STN Racing covering the Four Corners Racing League, but we'll have a lot more coming up within the rest of this week, including the FTF Saturday Night Super Speedway League, except it's on Fridays. That'll be right here on STN Racing, Fridays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. It'll start just about 11 days from now on February 26th, and we'll move forward to the rest of that season, so you can catch that Fridays at 9:30 p.m. Eastern. You'll find all of that right here on STN Racing. But for all of us at Daytona International Speedway, for Jared Houston, Ryan Hines, and all the people that make it possible here for the Four Corners Racing League, and for all of us here at STN Racing, for my colleague in the booth, Jarrett Mackey, and our producer, Zach Johnson, for pushing the buttons here tonight, my name is Kenneth Bueno, saying good night from the World Center Racing. We'll see you as we move forward through 2021.